Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
How you doing today?
Excellent. It's preview season, so I'm like super pumped. How about you? How you doing?
I'm really excited for preview season 2. I mean, we've gotten a bunch of new cards to look at this week, and the level of cards is really exciting. You know, like multiple Planeswalkers. How often does that happen?
Yeah, it's and and they're kind of some fun ones too. Like, kind of excited about the different directions they're pulling. But first, want to give a major shout out to everybody, sharing us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, where you can follow us, Patreon, particularly Drew David Gartner.
Oh, thanks a lot, Drew. Yeah, it's very heartwarming to us all the times that we get stopped at tournaments, or people talk about the podcast on social media, or share stuff on Facebook, or obviously on Patreon. You guys are out there bringing this to everybody, and it's the season of giving, and we feel given too. We love giving out.
It was super awesome. Grand Prix Denver this weekend. The amount of top level listeners that I got a chance to meet or reconnect with, super awesome. I mean, just wish we would have more time to be able to kick it with everybody. But like, so many people, and it really meant a lot having that many people that enjoy the show.
That sounds awesome. I'm in a not dissimilar situation this week. I elected not to play in the New Jersey RPTQ, and instead I'm flying out to Utah again. And I didn't even tell anybody I was flying out to Utah. Well, I didn't. I told some people, right? But I didn't make a massive announcement or anything. I actually just got invites and said, "Hey, come stay with us." And a bunch of people from Utah actually reached out to me like, "Hey, are you going to come to our RPTQ again?" And I was just like, yeah, actually I am. And, folks are reaching out from that community. So I think it'll be really interesting to connect with folks in a different, local community, different LGS setting and so forth. They've got great podcasters and stuff out there too.
Sweet. Yeah, well, good luck, man.
Thanks. Hopefully it'll be a well worth a trip again. I'm happy with the last time that happened.
So what do you think of? Yeah, that's true. That's right. The Pro Tour, returned to the Pro Tour last year.
Yeah.
What do you think of jumping in on the Aether Revolt preview front with the new Ajani Unyielding?
Ajani Unyielding. So this guy is a 6-mana Planeswalker, 4 GW for Planeswalker Ajani, 4 starting loyalty, and he's got 3 abilities. +2. Reveal the top 3 cards from your library, put all non-land permanent cards revealed this way into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. -2. Exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. And -9. Put 5 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, and 5 loyalty counters on each other Planeswalker you control. That is an interesting design space, that last ability, I think. That's my read of this. So, it's hard for me to get excited about a 6-mana Planeswalker to begin with. I don't know. How do you feel? Like, I can be excited, right? We've seen great ones.
Chandra, right? Elspeth, Sorin, they're all exciting to different degrees.
Chandra,
Elspeth is just off the charts. And both Chandra and Sorin have been quite good.
Key contributors, absolutely.
Yep.
So Ajani's got a fair number of things going correctly for him, right? So he's got 4 starting loyalty, but for only 2 of that starting loyalty, he can defend himself against exiling target creature. It can be, just for sake of argument, right? It could be a reality smasher, right? A card that could potentially kill him in 1 strike if it were able to attack again, and typically is hard to deal with some sort of point removal, but he can point at that reality smasher and remove him from the game without any additional penalties, no matter how big or small.
Well, your opponent gains life. That's
yes, I apologize. That is the penalty, but I was thinking about having to discard.
Yeah, restrictions, right.
But yeah, so that is an interesting point. You'd think, maybe you wouldn't think this, right? But it's just some precedent around cards like Sorin, let's say, even to some degree like an Ob Nixilis, cards that are like only 5 mana for a Planeswalker. You know, how the life goes. I think that's kind of a big jump in life for the opponent for this ability, but maybe it's well worth it for Ajani. I think that one of the first tests that we often apply to a Planeswalker, though, is, especially an expensive one, can it defend itself? And Ajani can, right?
Yeah, I mean, when Ajani comes down and exiles a creature immediately, it's like, Swords to Plowshares is a little bit of a weird comparison because the truth is that people would play Swords to Plowshares in Standard if it costs 3, right? But if you dropped Ajani Unyielding and effectively Swords to Plowshares their creature, which is a very relevant thing, the difference between destroy and exile, like it's not just the fact that it gets things like Scrap Heap Scrounger out of the game, it's or Metalwork Colossus at quite a life bump. It's also potentially, depending on what cards get made, it's an answer to indestructible threats. And, like for instance, obviously, Ulamog, for instance, Ajani can exile, whereas Ob Nixilis cannot destroy.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. Right, especially like if the opponent's on Ulamog mana, he might knock you down only to 6, but then you can cast Ajani and then just probably turn the game around.
And then you're left with a Planeswalker that, while it doesn't have very much loyalty at the beginning, if you do the plow thing immediately, it starts drawing cards pretty rapidly, right? Like, reveal the top 3 cards of your library and put all non-land permanent cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest in the bottom of your library in the order. So, without too much help, without too much bending over backwards, you can, like, set your deck up in a way so that you're going to get pretty close to 1.5 cards from this top ability.
Yeah, it really depends on how you build your deck, right?
Yeah. And Ajani's definitely giving you some pretty strong incentive to not play very many spells. It is interesting that it can't hit land either.
That is kind of weird, right, for this kind of a card?
So the end result, I think, like, it's tough because this Ajani, I don't know. I mean, it seems like it could be okay, but man, it's hard for me to get too excited about this one just from these two alone. When even though these abilities are great, I mean, these are great abilities. It's just it's not quite as efficient as I would like. You know,
yeah,
like it's
there. You know, if you apply the test of are these things that I might want to do, the answer is certainly the yes.
Overwhelmingly yes.
Absolutely
and it's
yes.
A great card drawer in a deck that is full of permanents. Particularly appreciates having a plow option. You know, that's the tough thing though is that there's a lot of great 6s in Magic and
in
even
Standard.
And even just among Planeswalkers, there's a number of other Planeswalkers that match up a little better in the head-to-head. You know, like if you Ajani and plus and they drop a Chandra, and I mean,
just kill it.
That's
to death.
That's a tough. Or if you drop a Ajani and then they drop a Sorin. So it's just.
Well, how about they drop a Chandra and then you drop an Ajani? I mean, like that's even worse than you drop. Well, maybe it's not worse than you drop an Ajani. They drop a Chandra, but it's not good.
Right, you can't do it either way. Yeah. So he doesn't match up great against other Planeswalkers, but the ultimate though. So one of the interesting components of Ajani that kind of makes me take slight pause. Put 5 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, and 5 loyalty counters on each other Planeswalker you control. So this one is, it only takes you 3 upticks to already be there with Ajani. Right? Like you only have to go up 3 times, and that's assuming there's no other shenanigans to expedite the process. And if you ultimate Ajani, you're going to ultimate all your other Planeswalkers 9 times out of 10, right?
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing about this. So, we don't have Secure the Wastes anymore. Like, if Secure the Wastes were still in Standard, I think that there'd be a really just intuitive way to play this card, right?
Well, no, but there's already Nissa making 0/1s and Gideon making 2/2s. There's Gideon. There's also Oath of Gideon. Oath of Gideon making 2 1/1s is interesting, and Ajani Unyielding getting to ultimate in just 2 turns. That's starting to get I mean, that's a little bit.
I think that's not nothing. But I'm just thinking, if you just go like this thing, and then a couple of turns go by, you can use secure the waste to defend it, and then you have a ready-made lethal fireball. Basically,
it's just that that card's not legal.
No, of course, right? So what I'm saying is, I think that the really interesting thing here is around the Planeswalkers. I think that this isn't. It's just like it's like a down payment ultimate, where like.
Well, dude, the counters matter a lot too, though, because I think you got to be in for the sum of the parts. You got to be in for all the value you're getting, and enough of the other Planeswalkers make tokens. I mean, like maybe your Chandra makes 2 tokens that turn. Maybe your Gideon's tokens are around, or your Nissa, but.
I guess it's great with Liliana's tokens. That's sure. Pretty fantastic.
The thing that bridges all these things together, though, is that Ajani is another Planeswalker that costs 6 for your Call the Gate. Summon the Gatewatch?
Call the Gatewatch?
Call the Gatewatch, right. So Call the Gatewatch really appreciates expensive Planeswalkers, right?
Oh, yeah, sure. The card like that is... I shouldn't say so inconsistent, right? You could build a deck that makes it much more consistent, but obviously the more expensive your Planeswalkers, the more value you're getting out of it, right? Because that card is not just an inspiration, it's like an inspiration and multiple Black Lotuses, maybe.
Yeah, like 4 Black Lotuses, and it's better than inspiration because you're getting 2 of your top 7. So sometimes or 2 of your top, 2 of your top...
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like an Ancestral Memories combined with like 4 Black Lotuses.
Right. So, like, it is very powerful if you can just overload your deck with, like, expensive Planeswalkers. And one of the challenges is that, like, if your deck just has, like, 4 Chandras and 4 Sorens, there's such a good chance that you see 2 Chandras or 2 Sorens and you can't even do anything with it. But if your deck has, a couple Ajani Unyieldings, a couple Sorens, a couple Chandras, now you're starting to get a little bit of a spread, and maybe some other ones. Like, you could end up with just... so much better of chances of actually getting 2 expensive Planeswalkers so that you can get like a for reals hit.
So how would you do this, Patrick? You gotta like have like an either or deck, right? So I guess half your deck is calls and expensive Planeswalkers, maybe some middle Planeswalkers, and the rest of your deck is just defend myself for the first 6 or so turns of the game. Is that the...
No. So I think you can... So to start with, there's like a lot of great incentive for a deck like this and just actually let me back up. If you're going to play Oath of the Gate or Call the Gatewatch, the amount of Planeswalkers that you actually want to play it's a very tricky question because every Chandra you put in your deck adds more power than every Nissa, but every Chandra messes up your mana curve more. I think you're probably going to end up wanting to play with somewhere in the ballpark of 18 to 20 Planeswalkers.
Wow.
And that's going to be kind of tough.
They can't all be expensive ones if you're playing that many.
Definitely no. No, definitely no. But I do think that that it'd be great if you could end up in a space where and I don't know what the total right number is yet, but if you play with stuff like Oath of Jace is interesting in such a deck because it gives you something to do with all these extra 6-cost Planeswalkers. So that if your deck has like 8 or 9 6-cost Planeswalkers, but like say you have like 9, maybe even 10 6-cost Planeswalkers, Oath of Jace lets you pitch the 2 that you draw, so that on turn 6 when you cast Call the Gatewatch, you are you're not just sitting on a handful of stuff you can't play. You've been playing other cards to defend yourself early. And then obviously Oath of Jace gives you extra utility for the more Planeswalkers you have, so that you start just ripping through your deck. The Scry is actually kind of interesting with Call the Gatewatch anyway. Because if you get a couple, you got your Nissa, your Liliana, or whatever, you got a couple Chandra, I don't know. If you got a couple Planeswalkers early on, and your Oath of Jace lets you do something like Scry 3, you can actually get into spots where you look at your 3, you put the land at the bottom, you put the Call the Gatewatch in your hand, and you leave on top of your deck a Sorin. And then you know for sure that it's going to be a great hit.
Yeah.
And then additionally, the other oaths, like Oath of Chandra, good way to protect yourself early. Oath of Gideon, good just for getting all these, the ultimates, and just generally the more planeswalkers you have, the better the oaths stack up for you.
I mean, Oath of Nissa is just great if we're going to play with Ajani Unyeilding, right? It's like that's one of the main ones you would want to play, especially if you're going to have a deck that's got 18 plus planeswalkers in it. Especially if they're all different colors.
Yep.
Oath of Nissa is going to be fantastic there.
So I think that's the most exciting place that's the first place I turn to for Ajani Unyeilding.
So you're thinking like 18 planeswalkers-ish. I would say I'm just guessing. What's going on?
Sorry, my audio cut for a second.
Right,
is this better?
Yeah. I'm just guessing from my intuition and experience about playing with cards like this over the years that we call it 26 primary mana sources. Do you think that's high or low?
Are you counting Oath of Nissa?
I was wondering actually, maybe 20.
No, I don't think
24 plus 4.
Yeah. It depends on what your other two, like what else you're playing early, because you need to have something else legit that you're actually doing early on. But I think that
like Sylvan Advocates or something.
I don't know. I'm inclined not to play Sylvan Advocate so much. Rather play like some kind of a ramp card or something that can defend you a little more effectively than just like a random dork body. The printing of Yohani's expertise makes me real cool on Sylvan Advocate.
Oh, that's a good point. So a 2/3 is far less exciting when -3/-3 Bloodbraid Elf is in the format.
Right. But I think that if you're playing like something like 3 Ajani Unyielding, 3 Sorin, 3 Chandra, and then some mix of smaller Chandra, Nissa, I'm not sure what your split ends up, what everything looks like early on, but I think one of the big questions you got to answer is what are you going to do on turn 2 when you don't draw Oath of Chandra?
Yeah, I was thinking a different direction. What if this is just the top end of maybe a reimagined green-white tokens deck? Like you already mentioned Nissa and Gideon before. That was a heck of a deck not long
ago. And Oath of Gideon.
Yeah, not that long ago. That was a real deck that was winning all the tournaments, right? There is a lot to be said for Smugglers, Copters, and Spellquellers, no doubt. But is this enough to rebirth an archetype?
Well, I think you could put Smuggler's Copter in your new wave green-white tokens.
Yeah, the problem is Nissa tokens don't crew very well, but I guess Gideon tokens crew great. So.
Yeah, Oath of Gideon tokens crew as well.
Yeah. If that's actually the thing for me. If I found something that I could happily crew with, I guess I don't know. Is there a 2 mana token makes 2 tokens in color? The artifact one.
Yeah, where you get 2 servos.
Yeah. That's okay, right?
Yeah.
It's synergistic and can crew.
Yeah.
But I think then you're only. I guess you have a fair number of powerhouse cards. So Nissa, Gideon, and then you probably play Archangel Avacyn still, right? Those are all really good cards.
Yeah, I think so. I think Archangel Avacyn just looks so good. So, Ajani Unyielding is actually not the only new Ajani in this set, though. It looks like they are continuing in the tradition of having a second version so that they can actually put a Planeswalker in the dual decks without having it just be completely lopsided and distorting of the precon on precon battles. And so this time around, and in the past, the other ones, they were kind of interesting, but they were just as such not as high a power level as other Chandras and Nissas, In this case, Ajani...
there are 2 other Chandras in the format that are both outstanding.
Ajani Valiant Protector. It's 4 green-white, so another 6-cost Planeswalker, so competing straight up against the Ajani Unyielding.
Same loyalty at 4.
So Ajani Valiant Protector, 4 green-white, 4 loyalty, +2 to put 2 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target creature. You can +1, so 2 different plus abilities. You can +1 to reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And then the ultimate is -11. Put X +1/+1 counters on target creature, where X is your life total. That creature gains trample until end of turn.
This card is not nearly as bad as the other precon Nissa and Chandras, right? Like, am I crazy on this? I actually like...
I don't know that the other ones were bad. I mean, Nissa showed up in tournament play.
I mean, they're on a comparable basis. There's two great Nissas and two great Chandras in addition to those in Standard. Okay, I can accept your statement. I just think this card is like... I don't hate it. The thing, I actually don't like the +2 ability very much for the cost, but the +1 ability seems not unreasonable to me. And the -11 ability is sweet. It just doesn't protect itself, and it's a little ponderous in terms of its speed. You know, that's probably going to be completely outclassed by the other one, but in the dark, I don't hate this card at all. That's
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't think this one is even close. I think this one is worse. Like I mean, the other Nissa showed up. I think this one's not going to show up. This one seems so... I mean, it's a fine card. It's just that there's other 6s that are just definitely better.
Like, yeah, I mean, the other Ajani is already going to be in a Planeswalker, in an environment where Planeswalkers are good, right? So Planeswalkers are already embattled by cards like Smuggler's Copter, right? But, you know, he's competing for space against 6 casting cost Planeswalkers like Sorin and Chandra. This one is, I think, clearly a cut below the other one. I'm just saying in the dark, I don't hate the card.
Right, and so look, stack the abilities up next to each other.
Yeah.
But in the correct order. So if you look at Ajani's +1, reveal cards until you reveal a creature card, put that card in your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. That ability is in general not as good as a +2 to get all of the non-land permanents in the top 3.
So the +2 is good relative to the +1 for 2 reasons, right? So one of them is you get an additional loyalty. That's very meaningful, obviously, as we're trying to ramp up to ultimates. But the +1 actually, I think, is a more consistent way of drawing extra cards, and is also less restrictive on your deck. So this Ajani Valiant Protector, for sake of argument, you could have one creature in your deck, and you could get it with this every single time. So it's incredibly not restrictive. Versus the +2 on Ajani Unyielding, which you could just never hit any card. Like, if just making this up, this is a stupid example. But if you were playing Ajani Unyielding in a blue-red spells deck, right, you just never get any cards, right? You have to build your deck in a specific way in order to take advantage of it, which you'll typically do in that kind of if you're going to choose to play that card. But I think that the non-restrictiveness is part of the calculus, not just the power level and not just the number of loyalty.
Well, and I think there's actually quietly more restrictiveness than it looks, because so much of the power comes from the tutor. So, like, every creature you would put in your deck has the added cost of disrupting Ajani Valiant Protector from being a tutor.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just in a very extreme example.
Because, like, if you're drawing nothing but Ishkanas, you might love it, right? But every time you add something else, now that's one less Ishkana you draw.
Oh, yeah. It's the same thing as, like, Madcap Experiment, right? Like, you have to play Madcap Experiment to only get Platinum Empyrean. If you start doing anything else, you start taking a ton of damage. Yeah, it's a very similar situation. So
now, Ajani Unyielding, compared to Ajani Valiant Protector for their other ability, so +2 to put 2 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target creature. Miss me with that. That ability is just not what I'm looking for.
Oh, yeah, it's just garbage, right? I mean, compare that to -2 Swords of Plowshares. One of these abilities is outstanding, and the other ability I don't even want.
So,
right? Like we said before, if you're like, forget about the cost of the card. Do you want to do these things? And the other Johnny, we want to do both of those things. In this one, I think we respect the tutor at +1, but the +2, I don't want that ability on a 6 cast.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you're paying for with the +2 is getting to that ultimate faster, but it's still just so far away. On the other hand, Ajani Unyielding, well, the -2 to plow a creature isn't like the best thing in the world. You could do worse. Like, that's a nice option. That's a real
No, respect.
Absolutely.
It takes out a reality smasher with you point out correctly, not no drawback, but minimal drawback for the creature we're talking about. It takes out indestructible creatures. It takes out creatures with protection from instants. It takes out anybody that can be targeted, right? I think that's super good. I'm very happy to have that in the context of a card that does multiple other things, right? Worst case scenario, if you said 6 mana, you get to plow your opponent's 2 best cards. That's what this card does. You would choose that option sometimes.
That's not worst case scenario.
I guess that's not worst case scenario, but you would choose that option sometimes.
Oh yeah, definitely. So then, when we go to the ultimate, where at this point, Ajani Unyielding is already like way ahead because of that superior second ability. Ajani Valiant Protector's ultimate -11. Like
that's a long road.
Like, don't get me wrong, you're probably winning the game. You are vulnerable to any spot creature kill. But really, how did you not win from 7 demonic tutors for creatures? You're just not going to do that.
Oh, yeah, because I guess the implication, no matter what you're doing with your Ajani Valiant Protector, is it's in a creature context, right? If you're doing the +2, you're only doing the +2 profitably if you've got something to put the counters on. And then otherwise, the +1 is supposed to be getting you Ishkanas or, I don't know,
Emrakul.
Like a Gear Hulk.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think this Ajani Valiant Protector's ultimate is worth very little. Whereas Ajani Unyielding, this ultimate is legit. It's not the best ultimate in the world, but it's pretty good, and it's like 2.5. It's 2.5 turns away, sometimes 2 if you have Oath of Gideon. And even though it's like it requires a parlay to really, do fancy things, it's got use, it's got purpose, it's something.
I mean, it's actually not that hard to imagine just using all of your cards to defend Ajani Unyielding for the 2.5 turns required to get him to Ultimate Zone, and then you have an expectation of 7, 8 or more mana in Standard, right? At the point that you'd be at an Ultimate, you could just slap down multiple Planeswalkers that turn and then go Ultimate, right? That's very within range of reasonable play, and then you beat your opponent with the 2 ultimates that you just got for free. That's actually, I think, what you might do here. Looping through your deck with cards like Oath of Nissa. And that's besides if you had a regular small Nissa going where you could get a huge payoff from the +5 on all your 01 plant tokens.
Yep. But, so actually both of these Ajanis, obviously interesting, one a little bit more interesting than the other. But we do have another 6-cost Planeswalker that has been revealed.
I actually have 2 questions.
Sure.
One of them is maybe a little out of the purview of our usual topics on the podcast, but I think maybe you might know. So, story-wise, what's up with Ajani? Do you know the answer to this? I thought, didn't he die or something?
No. Wait, why?
I don't know. He isn't in the Gatewatch.
Yeah.
Just rough life.
I mean, Ajani's brother, Nico Bolas killed Ajani's brother or whatever, right?
I don't know. Dude was awesome Planeswalker when he was red and white. I liked him then. Haven't seen him in a while. His previous green and white incarnation was that same time as Elspeth was.
Yeah, but Elspeth died. Elspeth's the one
Elspeth died. Oh man, that makes me sad.
Yeah, Elspeth is dead. As dead as they come. She died a noble death, though.
She lost to a god, right?
No, she didn't lose.
Oh, she won?
She won.
Oh, she had the God Slayer? Is that her weapon?
She sacrificed her life in order to be able to defeat, what's his name? Heliod.
Heliod?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought she was fighting
Xenagos. No. Was it Heliod? No, I thought it was
Xenagos, right?
Xenagos, yeah, I think it was Xenagos.
Wait, so what's better, a god or a Planeswalker? A god?
They're different. What's better, an Eldrazi or a Planeswalker?
I mean, in the story, that's like I don't.
Nobody's better. They're just different. Nobody's better.
Like generally speaking, a planeswalker's better than a dragon, but straight up, a dragon typically kills a planeswalker. Like I don't know what the.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about, man. I think they're just different.
Okay. Like I said, that wasn't even the question that's out of the purview of our podcast. The other one,
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I know. I know. The other one is, I actually super like the art to Ajani Valiant Protector. I wish that they used that art on the one that's actually going to be more likely to see play. That's just my comment. Which art do you like better?
Well, I don't know. I don't really have opinions. I mean, I'm of the I save my positions on things for like 2 + 2 is 4. I don't really have an opinion. Like when you say 2 + 2 is 3, I'm like, no, but it's not really an opinion. When it comes to these two, I think beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I do think that Ajani Valiant Protector makes a great image to appear on a product to try to entice new players to play the game. And it's not like there's any issue with Ajani Unyielding.
No,
right?
It's not bad. I just love Ajani Valiant Protector's image. That's all. I'm saying I'm down with it. All right, back to other 6 casting cost planeswalkers. You were speaking, I believe, of Tezzeret, the Master of Metal.
Yeah, Chris Pakula's Planeswalker card. The Master of Metal himself. 4 blue, black.
Well, if it was Tezzeret, like the Dilettante of Metal, I think maybe you'd be right.
So, Tezzeret, Master of Metal, is 4 blue, black for a Planeswalker that starts with 5 loyalty. His +1 ability. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an artifact card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. His -3 ability, his target opponent loses life equal to the number of artifacts you control. And his -8 ability is gain control of all artifacts and creatures target opponent controls.
What an interesting / weird card. It's like, this card is, I think, sometimes really, really powerful, but it's very conflicting to me. What do you think?
What do you mean conflicting?
So, the +1 ability is very similar to the +1 ability that the previous Ajani we were talking about, that creature potential tutor, right? That you could just have a small number of artifacts or redundant artifacts in your deck, and Tezzeret, Master of Metal, can be a tutor for them if you don't play with very many. But the -3 strongly implies that you should be playing with a bunch of artifacts in order to get, the value that you can get out of the card. So makes me think that maybe correct construction with this Planeswalker is about playing a large number of artifacts of various costs, not tutor for specific artifacts necessarily. And then the ultimate's really interesting. Like, it doesn't do anything a lot of the time, but it does a lot some of the time. That's what I mean by conflicting.
So I think you kind of pick one of your roads. With this Tezzeret, are you more about the +1 or the -3? And I think that the +1 can still be good if you have lots of artifacts. It's like just giving you.
If you're the -3 guy, the +1 is sweet. It's fine, actually. The +1 is fine if you're the -3 guy. I shouldn't say sweet.
Yeah, and if you're setting this guy up just to be a demonic tutor for the same thing every turn, I actually don't think that you care that much about losing the option of the -3, because your deck is probably set up to be all about going plus demonic tutor, and then hopefully the 2 artifact demonic tutors buy you enough time so that you can threaten this ultimate.
Like, what if the only artifacts in your deck are like black and blue Gearhulks, right? Like, this would be really, really good to get. Well, it depends which Gearhulk you wanted at the time. But if let's say you were only getting blue Gearhulks.
Yeah, if your deck just has 4 torrential Gearhulks in it.
Yeah, and Tezzeret, like, that's a card that I would want to hit.
Right. So I think it's not so much that he's conflicting, it's that there's multiple paths. Because if you go the path where you're basically just 4 torrential Gearhulks, great. Like, you get 2 torrential Gearhulks, and then you can ultimate Tezzeret. And if you're going the path where you are valuing the -3, then you might have a whole bunch. Think, for instance, more like a Metalwork Colossus deck. where you can be using him as a tutor, but a lot of the time what you'll do is drop him and then just go upstairs for like 8 and
Sure.
like often win the game. But even if you don't, the fact that you can like your opponent has to go after this planeswalker, or else you're gonna like draw a card and then threaten to do it again.
Like, I was thinking that the guy who's the -3 guy might be like Terrarians and Prophetic Prisms kind of guy. Is that a possibility? Like,
I mean, Prophetic Prism's definitely a key component of the Metalwork Colossus stuff. I'm talking. You're also playing. You're playing like Puzzle Knots.
yeah.
All that. You know.
So that's an interesting perspective. So, do you think this implies 2 different, distinct strategies you can go with? One of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting.
Night and day. 2 totally different strategies.
But the -3 guy can still get value from the +1s.
For sure. And the +1 guy, even though he's not going to be like doing the -3 very often, it's not like a completely unheard of thing.
No, if you've got like 3 Gearhulks in play, like maybe just go -3 and nug them for a bunch and then just get in. That maybe they're just dead.
But it's more likely that the +1 guy is looking at that ultimate, whereas the -3 is looking at going -3 +1 -3, or +1 -3 -3.
Oh, so the -3 guy, the -3 is his ultimate, right? You just
Exactly.
got it. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Well, how do you look? So all of these abilities are obviously very desirable abilities. So I've even played with the card Insurrection in Standard before. Have you played with that one?
Oh yeah, of course.
So, you know, the -8 is very reminiscent of an Insurrection, even aesthetically to the point that it's a -8, right?
Except it's permanent.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that. So
Like that's a big game, right? Like
I don't know how long the game is going to last when you take control of everything, but sure. That is a big game. But what do you think about the cost? Right, this is a steep cost on a Planeswalker. We just spent the entire first half of the podcast talking about how Ajani is expensive at 6. Tezzeret is no less expensive at 6.
Yeah, and in fact, slightly more so.
Because he's not green?
Yeah, the fact that this Tezzeret costs 6 is also a challenge when, like one of the most exciting things to go find is Torrential Gearhulk.
Yeah, you've got a lot of 6 in your deck.
So I think it's going to be an interesting puzzle trying to see how much you can get away with this guy, because this is an expensive. This is a big investment. Let's put it that way.
We've never actually talked about this before, but I'm just wondering, when you brew new decks, is one of the... I assume that you have a bunch of different mental exercises you go through, or mental models you go through as you're working on decks, before you actually grill into playing, right? I do. It's like, thinking about mana curve, thinking about different scenarios. Do you ever think about, like, if you play with certain combinations of cards, how bad your draws can be sometimes? Like, because when you said this thing about the torrential Gearhulks, like, you could really be in a situation where your hand is clogged with Gearhulks even before you get the Tezzeret, right? Now you're like, now these are just all nonsense, and you're going to get overrun.
I don't know. I think about the distribution of hands I could get exactly correctly or accurately. I guess I just assume that I'm going to draw a
normal distribution,
like a random distribution influenced by my Mulligan algorithms. But as far as Tezzeret, something else that makes him kind of like dangerous as a 6-cost investment, he can't protect himself. Right, like that's a real thing, right?
For a 6, yeah.
Yeah. So, but now it's nice that if you just drop this guy at -3, you're kind of like doing some stuff. It's like, bam, taste it.
I mean, maybe, right? Like that. So there's no more or less assumption there than just having creatures in play to block, right? You know, okay, if you've got creatures to play to block, he needs to defend himself less. Also, that's I don't know. I want to like him because he's very powerful, and I love the idea of just searching through my library for lots and lots of Gear Hulks. But he's asking a lot of us. He's not a small time player.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. It's appealing. It's sweet. It's fun. But when I look at it, I can't help but think that this is probably just not how I want to spend 6 mana. But we'll see. Depends on what the rest of the set offers, you know.
Well, we've seen implications of blue-based control decks that are a combination of creatures and artifacts, right? Like, we haven't really seen one come to fruition before, but you know, there could be decks based on like Glintnest Crane, and we talked last week a little bit about.
No, those have come to fruition.
No, but with like Glintnest Crane and Trophy Mage, right? Like, kind of those things together and kind of a harmony between. Because the cool thing about those cards is they're not very expensive, right? Glintnest Crane is a great investment at 2. Trophy Mage is a very reasonable investment at 3. You could play these kind of cards in a context where you're starting out with creatures that can block and defend Tezzeret Master of Metal, and you're playing cards in a context where you're going to have a bunch of artifacts, so those cards search for artifacts, and then, you know, that's also kind of what the -3 Tezzeret wants. So, I don't know. I think maybe there's a thing there.
Actually, in that space, if your Trophy Mage package, you know, the 2 and a blue 2/2 that you were just talking about that lets you search your deck for an artifact that costs 3. If your Trophy Mage package has an accelerator, you know, a 3 mana, you know, like the Cultivator Caravan, you can go turn 3 Trophy Mage, go get Cultivator Caravan, drop the Cultivator Caravan on turn 4, and now you're ramping straight into 6. Like, it's not like it's the most busted thing in the world, but particularly if on turn 4 you have some 2 mana removal spell, you know, where you're like, oh, Grasp of Darkness or whatever, you could be like making some pretty decent plays.
Yeah, I think there's something there. What about getting?
Of course, you could just not play Tezzeret for 6 mana and instead Torrential Gear Hulk your Grasp of Darkness.
Oh, that would be pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, like, what if you got like Aetherworks Marvel with Tezzeret? And, like, your whole big shtick was to get Aetherworks Marvels, but maybe you wouldn't have enough energy if that was your strategy.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
it's I don't know. It's
Aetherworks Marvel.
Dude, it's real hard to not want to play the Puzzle Knot.
Well, yeah, and that's like every single successful Aetherworks Marvel deck so far has played at least 4, right? And some play like 8.
At least, yeah.
So far, we don't like Ajani Valiant Protector very much for Constructed. We kind of like Ajani Unyielding for Constructed. And we're less ish, but then we're much less on Tezzeret Master of Metal. But we see possibility with both of those Planeswalkers, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, there's possibility with both Ajani Unyielding and Tezzeret Master of Metal. And there's possibility with Ajani Valiant Protector, too. It's just, something that's important to note is that this Tezzeret, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a better Tezzeret in this set. Because, like, the book Tezzeret, like, I get, like, one of them tutors up creatures and one of them tutors up artifacts.
Yep.
Not the book, the pre-con dual decks. But this, I'm not so sure that this is as good as it gets. You know, I think that there's going to be a different Tezzeret. And I think that right now, if we saw for instance, if we saw the other Tezzeret right now instead of this one, and I don't know that there is one. Maybe there's not. But I would guess that there is. And I would guess...
Just based on the last set, maybe there is, right? We saw a mirroring of 2 different Planeswalkers then.
Yeah. But... there is actually a really exciting card that was just revealed. It's not exactly.
What I was getting at.
It's so Tezzeret's jam is artifacts, and Ajani, one of his jams is messing with loyalty of Planeswalkers. Well, Heart of Kiran is a 2-cost legendary artifact vehicle. 4/4, flying vigilance. Crew 3, and it also has the upside of you may remove a loyalty counter from a Planeswalker you control rather than pay Heart of Kiran's mana or crew cost.
So, interesting card, right? So, 2 casting cost. I like it already. 2 casting cost for a 4/4. Wow, tell me more. Flying and vigilance? So they get you because the crew cost is pretty high, right, for a 2 casting cost vehicle. So Smuggler's Copter, 2 casting cost vehicle that came out of the last set, much lower crew cost than we're seeing here. So this is a high crew cost, but then they're like, oh, we were just kidding. This thing is kind of bonkers, right? You can go, I don't know, Heart of Kiran, follow up with a Nissa or a Liliana on turn 3, plus it and then minus it immediately and get some like serious stuff going.
Yeah, and it's important to note, you can remove a loyalty counter from a Planeswalker in order to block with it at instant speed. So even though, like, if you go turn 2, Heart of Kiran, turn 3, Nissa, plus make a plant and then attack with Heart of Kiran, if your opponent tries to attack back, you can still just block with Heart of Kiran and take 1 loyalty off of Nissa.
Because it has vigilance.
Right.
This card just bonkers?
Like, they are obviously not messing around, right? Like, this is a, like, it really is a 4/4 flying vigilance creature for 2. So it's got that going for it. Now, I know what you might be thinking. A 2-cost vehicle can't possibly be good. Even, like, Smuggler's Copter, it looked like it was absurd. And it turned out to actually be, well, I guess actually completely absurd. So we, like, it's possible.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
it's just unbelievable. It's in 1/3 of the decks minimum that are succeeding in Standard right now. And, you know, if you look back at, like, the black-green deck that Ether...
No. It's a lot more than 1/3.
Yeah, minimum, I'm saying. I'm not even saying what the right distribution is.
About half the decks.
There are a lot of, like, Marvel decks and slow black-green decks. I don't think
I'm just saying half the decks, man, because there's, like, black-green, and there's, like, the Mardu Vehicles decks, and
Mardu
black-red, and...
I guess red-black and red-white vehicles, too. Okay, more than 1/3. Close to half. Let's go. It was a format warping card, and it didn't kill all the Planeswalkers, but it put the Planeswalkers on the back foot. Here's another one. I actually almost feel like you could play Heart of Kiran in a deck with almost no creatures. That's the thing that's interesting to me about it.
Oh, what if this is the 2 for our, Call the Gatewatch deck?
Yeah.
Because, like, if you've just got, I mean, I don't know if your mana could support it, but if you've got Nissas and Lilianas, I mean, maybe you're doing something. I don't know.
You are, but I think you'd probably have to play Max Nissas and Max Lilianas, because you really need to have a follow-up, or, I mean, you will have just wasted your first 4 turns if you...
Well, no, you got to remember, like, Heart of Kiran can also be crewed by all the miscellaneous, like, Oath of Gideon tokens, maybe the Oath of Liliana token. I don't know. I mean, sometimes one of Chandra's elementals will just crew the Heart of Kiran. Less so that, but...
I mean, you got to kind of super glue a lot of stuff together in order to get that stuff going, I think. It'll happen, no doubt, but I think that what you really want is to hit your 3-mana Planeswalker after you hit your 2-mana Heart of Kiran. And actually, the interesting thing is, do you play 4? It's a legendary artifact.
I don't know. Good questions.
So this card, I think that it's interesting that both Ajani Unyielding and Heart of Kiran seem to be exploring very different design space with some card types that are exciting already, and I think that's when we see really interesting opportunity for deck design and brewing and surprising people and coming out with a great finish at a tournament when you have something different that people haven't explored before as a possibility that didn't exist before.
Yeah, actually, Heart of Kiran might, like, what do you think of using Heart of Kiran in conjunction with something like Yeheni's Expertise? Because, like, as a vehicle, it can actually dodge sweepers, and even though the Yeheni's Expertise wouldn't actually straight up kill it, it is kind of interesting that you can play your Heart of Kiran. You don't actually have to commit any creatures to the board either. Normally with a vehicle, you'd have to commit other creatures to the board in order to crew it. But Heart of Kiran, you can just use like a Liliana counter or an Omnixilus counter. And then when you Yahenni's Expertise, you can actually go Yahenni's Expertise, sweep the board, and then bring Liliana straight into play from the Expertise, crew the Heart of Kiran, bash, and you just have a Planeswalker and a Heart of Kiran, and your Heart of Kiran can even protect your Liliana if they were to play like a haste creature.
These are all true statements. I think that play pattern will happen. I'm confident that people will go Heart of Kiran, maybe like draw 2 cards in the next turn or something, and then go Yahenni's Expertise into Liliana.
Kind of interesting. Interesting stuff. On that note, maybe we should roll out, see what other cards get spoiled this week or previewed this week, and get down to brewing. Yeah.
Well, I'm very excited for the upcoming set, but in the short term, I'm even more excited for my trip to Utah. So everybody out there, wish me luck. I need to get back on the Pro Tour.
Are you going to play Naya Burn?
No, I'm not going to play Naya Burn.
Good for you.
I'm going to play Boros Burn.
I'm off it. Good luck. Hey, good luck, man.
Thanks.
Tried to play Dredge, so jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis.